Okay, so I'm back for a bit more of a well planned out video. I think the last one might have been semi-coherent. Hopefully it made a bit of sense. But I think I kind of just circled around what I wanted to do. And so I'm going to be a bit more deliberate with this video and share a bit more of the specific plans, not just inspiration and wanting to move forward, but sort of how I see that actually taking shape and what I think the next steps of that would be. So first I want to talk a bit about what I think what the magic of the breakout rooms was. I think we all loved them, and I think I'm not alone in saying that they seem to always end too quickly. So why was that? I mean, we've all, I'm sure we've been using Zoom and similar tools a lot in the past weeks. So what made these special? And I think it comes down to two things that are sort of the same thing, and I touched on this in the previous video, but first, it's a self-selected crowd. It's the kind of people who watch Rebel Wisdom videos and like the videos enough to look forward to the event, the festival, and join. And then, but I think also a lot of the people there, I suspect, were watching the kinds of conversations that Rebel Wisdom sometimes hosts, or maybe you'll just find on Guy Sengstock's page, YouTube channel, or Vervaeke's YouTube channel, where they have a particular kind of conversation, and I think it's right to call it Dialogos. Of course, John Vervaeke had a talk, or I should say a session on that, in the during the festival. I had to miss, unfortunately, my internet messed up right at that time. And he's done other videos on this as well, and he's actively exploring it with his network. So I think shortly the magic of those sessions was actually Dialogos, and I think that it seems like this network of people interested in Dialogos is still kind of mapping out the term. But a quick way to talk about it, I think, is it's like circling with a purpose that's not just about the individuals. So circling, as far as I understand, is about opening up and sort of being heard and connecting on this really deep, meaningful level. And I think Dialogos takes that as a firmament, and then from that you start to generate this energy, the logos, and the dialogue with logos. The logos becomes this entity that's sort of between and almost above the people. One of the people in my breakout rooms mentioned that it seems like it happens when each individual puts the conversation above their own selves or their own egos, however you want to put that. So I think that is the magic of the breakout rooms. And I'll just be calling that Dialogos. I think that's a good word for it. So that's the first point I wanted to make. Now, these breakout rooms, they, I think there's two things about them. I think that, and these are going to sound like harsh words, but I want to sort of use them and then explain them. I think they were frustrated, and I think that they were lost. When I say frustrated, they ended too soon. Consistently, I felt like we had just begun, especially the really good ones, and then it was aborted, and it was just like, no. It was very sad to see the last minute come and the countdown timer start. That's what I mean by frustrated. I didn't feel frustrated. That's not the right word, but the phenomenon was frustrated. It was aborted. It was truncated. So that's one thing. And when I say it was lost, now, of course, the conversations that you have with people, they're not lost from your brain, and they don't have no impact. I mean, if you share some insightful comment that you couldn't have thought up alone, then everybody in your room now has that insightful viewpoint. And that's not nothing. However, when you left the breakout rooms, you would leave the breakout rooms to the session, and then the session often would have the leader who would sort of call on a few people with the time left and get a sense of sort of what people's breakout sessions were like. But I think that lost something. Well, certainly it lost something because not everybody spoke, right? And then further, something was lost when you went from that session back to the main 2-day event. I mean, when you look at the narrative of the 2-day event, and I loved the festival, and I certainly don't mean to criticize, or it was a wonderful event. I'll just say that. But these breakout sessions where Dialogos seemed to be happening a lot, the Dialogos didn't penetrate up. It didn't actually change the narrative of what was happening. They tried to sort of bring it in at the end, but to me it felt a little awkward actually to do that. At least the way it worked out. And again, it's an experiment, so no blame, but that's what I mean when I say they were lost. The event of 800 people strong, it was collective intelligence, but somehow I feel like with the Dialogos that we experienced in the breakout rooms could be an engine for what we actually were sharing in the overarching narrative. And that is what has inspired me to start making these videos, and that's what I want to pursue. Already, this online digital space and Zoom is let us do this festival, which was unique and amazing in certain ways. And if we can just explore that a little bit more, even without new technology, but just a different approach, we may be able to work these small group collective intelligence into something greater in a phenomenal way. So here's the question that I have for all of that. There were 800 of us at the event. Let's say that we could corral another 800 of us together. Is there a way that we could ask that crowd a question and through some process with Dialogos at the base, get a coherent insight back? Maybe not an answer, because sometimes the best response isn't an answer, right? Maybe it's another question. And that's very characteristic of Dialogos. But can we use Dialogos and somehow filter it back up to where the Rebel Wisdom Festival ended with a panel? Could we somehow end with a panel that somehow incorporated everything that was generated from the bottom? Of course, not everything, but is there some more elegant way to capture what happens and bring it up? Build what the end result is from the Dialogos, rather than what Rebel Wisdom did, which was pretty much pre-planned and curated, and the Dialogos was happening, I think, in parallel. Certainly not really affecting what was going on at the higher level much at all. At least not changing it, not determining it, certainly not building it, right? So, but can we do that instead? Can we build a narrative or a end result or an insight or a panel or something from the Dialogos at the bottom as an engine? Okay, I want to share an idea with you as to how to do that. Now, if this idea seems too specific, just keep in mind, I'm just trying to throw a dart at something that seems really promising to me. Okay, so let me get the whiteboard out. Okay, so let's start with the crowd. Okay, so there's our crowd. Question is, can we pose a question to this crowd, somehow use Dialogos at the base of it, and get a coherent answer out? So I think part of the solution, obviously, is you have to break down into small groups. Obviously, you can't just have a Zoom call with however many this is, 50, whatever. That's not going to work. So you need to break it down into. You start with the breakout. You start with what the festival called the breakout rooms. So let's put 4 or 5 people in each group here. Okay, so you have your small groups capable of Dialogos. We're assuming for the moment that everyone in here is reasonably capable of Dialogos, although that is a subject we can get into maybe at a later date. But I think, for example, at Rebel Wisdom, enough people were good at it to make the sessions magical. So let's rather just assume it's like roughly the same crowd as that we had in the Rebel Wisdom event. And we're having all these breakout rooms going, and let's say that these run for 1 hour. Okay, so now you have in each of these situations people listening deeply, speaking honestly, talking about what they feel, all that good Dialogos stuff, circling around some bigger truth, watching it emerge, and now they've all arrived somewhere, maybe not in an answer, but they've arrived somewhere that they couldn't have arrived at alone, which is just a wonderful feeling. But now what do you do with that? So here's the idea. Each of these groups could nominate a speaker. So if I'm in this group, and I notice that this guy over here is really good at listening, and he has just put all of our viewpoints together in a really interesting and concise way. I'm going to nominate him, and this could be either, I don't know, some kind of voting, or it could just be a social, could be, we don't need to get too technical here. Somehow we're going to have this group choose a leader, or I should say a nominee. Now, almost like a tournament, every group here is going to choose someone to represent them, okay? So, it's this guy. So you have these three get together. They have their own Dialogos thing. This could also be streamed, recorded. All of these or any of these could be streamed and recorded. These three have a discussion. These three have a discussion, and then these two have a discussion. And they talk about what came up for them in their groups. Right? Pretty simple, and I'm sure you can guess by now. You just repeat the process, because at this point, now you have, in the end, 4 conversations. Maybe they run for another hour. And then you bring these up, and this is your panel that culminates the evening. So, first of all, notice that these, in a tournament fashion, of course it's weird to talk about a tournament in this context because it's so non-rivalrous. At the same time, it's definitely, you can't really get away from the tournament-like structure here. But what's happened is, within each group, and then within the intermediary groups, you've sort of nominated someone who, well, what is the tournament for, essentially? It's for being able to have good conversation and understand other people and synthesize viewpoints, right? So at the end, you're going to have 4 speakers here who are essentially really good at synthesizing viewpoints, and they've inherited all of the insights, or I should rather say, of course, there's so much information here you can't bring it all up into the conversation, but you can say that this conversation is built from what's below here, as opposed to at the Rebel Wisdom Festival, where what we saw at the top was pre-built, curated to some degree. I mean, obviously the conversations themselves had a free-flowing nature, but it wasn't built from us. It wasn't built from this Dialogos at the bottom, like this idea suggests here. So that's just one idea that I had for how could you... I mean, in a way, the question for me came from, how do I do this again? How do I have these kinds of important, fulfilling conversations again? And it's not enough, I don't think, just to do it for fun. I don't think that would be enough to recreate it, and I don't think that's really what I want or what other people want. I think part of what made it so magical is not just the people that showed up, not just the listening skills they had, but the fact that we were all focused on the real world. Even though we ended the festival without having any clear course of action, I think we all felt relieved that we were all oriented in a similar way, and we are oriented toward what's happening now with Corona, the descent into sort of this chaotic period for humanity, the liminal space. So we need that objective. It's not enough just to get together and chat with strangers, although maybe that could work too. So back to the question of, can you ask a crowd a question and get a coherent answer back? That's just my idea there. But I just can't get away from this sense that what happened during the festival with the breakout rooms is the beginning of something with incredible potential. I mean, imagine if you could get 800 people together and think collectively in more than the way that we experienced last festival, but you could actually get people to have these intense, real, practical, but emotional conversations, and then somehow filter that up, and at the end, you get something beautiful. You could also have a lot of the media recorded, so that when you're having a conversation, maybe at an intermediary level, taking my idea, that you could actually reference what happened below. Okay, so there's a lot of unanswered questions yet. I mean, do the lower level sessions of 4 or 5 people, first of all, is that the right number? I don't know. It seems about right to me, but I don't really know. Should they be the same people every time? What if you don't like your group? Does it change every time? Is this all one event over a weekend? Is it spread out? How do you deal with the logistics of organizing so many people together, just in terms of time zones and commitments and things like that? What do you do if someone's not good at this? What if somebody shows up and they're all about their ego and they're trying to just tell the group about themselves and not really listen to other people? There's still a lot to figure out, but I think there's a lot of promise here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the Google Doc with all the contact info. I'm going to email either everybody on there, or maybe I'll be a little bit discerning and try to just email people who kind of maybe hint that they want to be involved in this kind of thing, although I think that's kind of implied when you put your email there. And yeah, if you're watching this video, you probably heard of it from that email, because I don't think it has much visibility yet. My channel in general, this and the previous video. And then I think the next step is to stop me just doing this myself. I'm really just speculating. I'm very excited and I'm happy to spend the time, but I need more than that. So far, I'm speaking into a void, and obviously that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to get back to the conversations and that dialogos, that breakout room magic. So I think a very easy first step for you to do, dear listener, if this excites you, is to get in contact with me and let's have a chat. And I'm thinking very much in the Guy Sengstock / John Vervaeke style, where it's recorded, it's not edited unless somebody has to use the bathroom or something. We have a general intention for what we want to talk about. And of course, in the first few videos, it'll be how do we set this up and what's the next step. And other than that, we just try to have a particularly deeply listening conversation where we pay attention to what's going on internally and externally, try to find truth between us. And that, I think, is how we can start turning this into reality. So please don't be shy. I want anybody who wants to do this to come and talk to me. If you absolutely don't want to be recorded, that's fine. Let's just have a chat. But I think we need to... Anyway, I'm repeating myself, but that's the next step. Contact me, talk to me. I'm also going to look and see if other people are doing similar things. Maybe I'm not the only one. That would be pretty cool. And